Behold the handmaid of the Lord.
Be it done to me according to your word.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of death. Amen.
And the Word was made flesh,
And dwelt amongst us.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Pray for us, O Holy Mother of God,
That we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ. Pour forth, we beseech you, O Lord, your grace into our hearts, that we, to whom the incarnation of Christ, your Son, was made known by the message of an angel, may by his passion and cross be brought to the glory of his resurrection, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen.
Kini ang simbianan sa RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKS, DXKS, 1080, ang inyong Radio Ronda, 5,000 watts, nagsimbiya sa ikatulong andana sa UFCO Lim Building, Borromeo Street, Dakbayan sa Surigao. RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKS 1080, ang inyong Radio Ronda.
This is Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines. I'm Mai Rodriguez, sitting in for Pia Ontiveros. Tonight on the program, officials see a spillover effect of higher transport costs on food items as more expensive fuel now force some jeepney drivers to step on the brakes. The health department detects more cases of two highly transmissible Omicron subvariants as experts flag an upward trend in COVID-19 cases in the National Capital Region. And streaming giant Netflix gives a green light to extend for another season a hit Korean zombie thriller series. The country records the fastest increase in prices of basic goods in more than 3 years. The Philippine Statistics Authority reports inflation shot up to 5.4% in May compared to 4.9% in April. This is the fastest acceleration since November 2018, when inflation stood at 6.1%. The PSA explains food and non-alcoholic beverages mainly pushed up inflation for the period, with vegetables, meat, and fish leading the increase for the commodity group. Gasoline, passenger transport by road, and diesel also contributed to quicker inflation.
Maraming nagsasabi na this is really due to increased transport costs. So, spillover na ito, nakita natin itong mga nakaraang buwan na nagsimulang kumbaga mag-spill over yung effect ng increased transport doon sa food at food basket natin. At ngayong buwan nakita natin na talagang nagkaroon na siya ng malaking.
Just today, another round of fuel price hikes took effect. Oil companies jacked up diesel prices by 6 pesos and 55 centavos per liter, while gasoline products are more expensive by 2 pesos and 70 centavos per liter. Consumers also need to shell out 5 pesos and 45 centavos more per liter of kerosene. With a fuel price hike that's more or less 80 pesos per liter of diesel and gasoline, Amor Santos tells us some public utility drivers are now forced to stop operations as fuel expenses leave them with no take-home pay.
This gasoline station now sells diesel for 79 pesos and 10 centavos per liter, while gasoline is up to more or less 76 pesos per liter. Prices exceed 80 pesos in other fuel companies. Some jeepney drivers are now forced to stop operations, like 62-year-old Rogelio Galos, after serving passengers from Manila to Pasay Tuesday morning.
Ang ikot ko 350, ang diesel ko 450. Birahin na lang dito. Tambay. Abunado ka pa. Wala, tablaan na lang. Hindi tayo gutom.
Transport Group Piston says it's not staging a transport strike for now, but some drivers are left with no choice.
Napipilitan na huminto pansamantala, hindi maiwasan sa hinaharap na magkaroon talaga ng tigil pasada.
Piston, along with labor and youth organizations, are calling on President Duterte to take action in the remaining days of his term. They want him to suspend fuel excise tax for at least 6 months and call for a special session of Congress to review the oil deregulation law.
Gusto namin magbalik paaralan. Pero what are the practical concerns na kinakaharap namin? Presyo ng pagkain, presyo ng pamasahe, di ba? Yung unbearable living cost.
Also, an appeal for the incoming Marcos administration.
Sana naman, huwag na tularan yung pinalitan niya. Yung mga pangako niya, gawin niya.
The government has offered assistance in the form of fuel subsidy and a compensation program. But drivers say the 6,500 peso aid they have received is long gone. They also lament delays in their salaries under the service contracting program.
Hirap kasi, pamahal ng pamahal. Yung subsidy, konti lang tulong. Ilang kargahan lang yun, ubus na kagad.
The LTFRB says more than 200,000 drivers and operators have received the fuel subsidy. That's 75% of the total number of beneficiaries under the first tranche initially set for March. Some 20,000 delivery riders have also benefited from the program. Tricycle drivers have to wait a bit longer with payouts eyed for next week. The second round of aid initially promised for April is now targeted for next month, according to the LTFRB. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
Malacanang attributes the increase in hunger to higher fuel prices, which has caused prices of basic commodities to go up as well. A recent social weather station survey shows 3.1 million or 12.2% of Filipino families experienced hunger in the first quarter of 2022. That's higher than the 11.8% hunger rate seen in a similar survey done in December last year. Acting presidential spokesperson Martin Andanar says the government continues to address hunger through livelihood projects, among other programs.
Kasama sa ating initiatives ang gulayan sa barangay at sa pamayanan programs at iba pang livelihood projects para mabawasan ang kagutuman. Kaya naman, bagaman may pagtaas sa bilang ng mga pamilyang Pilipino na nakakaranas ng gutom, mas mababa pa rin ng 12.2% ngayong Abril sa 16% nung huling bahagi ng 2020.
Aside from costly fuel, higher PhilHealth contribution is another thing that worries many people, particularly overseas Filipino workers. Tristan Nodalo tells us how they marked Migrant Workers' Day.
Nearly 3 decades since the law seeking to protect migrant workers was passed in 1995 following the execution of OFW floor contemplation, but same old problems persist according to an OFW group. On Tuesday, Migrante Philippines held a protest in front of the Migrant Workers Department to oppose the mandatory contribution hike in PhilHealth imposed to OFWs. They say this is an additional burden to Filipino workers who are still trying to recover from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. Based on their computation, an OFW may spend 9,600 to 38,400 pesos a year due to the new contribution rates. They also call on the incoming Marcos administration to address the plight of OFWs, their call for just wages, benefits, and justice.
Marami pa ring sadlak sa abuso, marami pa ring namomroblema kung paano ipagtatanggol yung kanilang karapatan. Lagana pa rin ang illegal recruitment. Dapat alisin yung lahat ng mga paniningil sa mga umaalis na mga Pilipino. 27 years after, eto kami at dumadanas at tatanggap ng mga bagong singilin mula sa gobyerno sa forma ng PhilHealth, sa forma ng SSS at Pag-ibig contribution.
Meantime, a Thanksgiving Day was held by the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration (NCR) in Pasay City to recognize the contribution of OFWs to the economy. Financial literacy and business opportunities were offered to them.
Kung nadidinig ninyo yung mga pronouncements ni Pangulong Duterte at even ni incoming Pangulong BBM, malakas po ang kanilang mensahe patungkol sa proteksyon sa mga OFWs, di lang OFWs, kundi OFW families.
Labor Chief Silvestre Bello also urged OFWs to consider going back home. The government has several reintegration programs for returning OFWs, including livelihood assistance. OFW groups remain hopeful that their sector will improve now that there's a Department of Migrant Workers. Incoming Migrant Workers Chief Susan Toots Ople will be taking the helm and transition meetings have been initiated. Tristan Nodalo, CNN Philippines.
Officials report over 20 million pesos worth of agricultural damage days after the eruption of Mount Bulusan in Sorsogon. Joining us live is Stanley Gahete, who is still keeping watch on the situation in the province. Stanley, how are farmers coping with yet another crisis?
My farmers here in Huban, Sorsogon admit they are clueless on how to recover from damage caused by volcanic eruption as Bulusan remains restive. The local agriculture office says the eruption has damaged more than 800 metric tons of crops. Coconut plantations suffered the most with losses in more than 3,000 hectares. Next is palay or paddy rice with 1,400 hectares and nearly 300 hectares of vegetables, fruits and other crops. Agriculture officials say they are preparing assistance for the farmers.
Tapos mga bagong pananim nun, siyempre pinaggastosan nila yun. Malulugi sila dahil mamamatay yung mga pananim nila. Lugi po kami kasi yung pinagbila namin yung pananim, baliwala na yun.
Meron kaming mga nakaabang na pantanim para po sa mga ganitong cases. Certified and hybrid palay seeds, meron din pong vegetable seeds, and pati po yung drugs and biologics para sa mga affected animals.
Meanwhile, aid keeps coming for people displaced by Bulusan's eruption. Police have put up a desalination machine in Barangay Puting Sapa to provide clean water.
Every time na meron pong disaster, ay dinedeploy po natin ng mga to. For now, ito po ay manatili po dito dahil wala pong masasabi na malinis na tubig para po sa ating mga kababayan.
Fire Bureau personnel help in the ash cleanup on roads, houses and even crops. Relief workers provide food packs, while the DICT and other telcos provide internet connection in the evacuation area.
Nagpapasalamat kami at maraming tumutulong. Dito sa Huban, mahirap ito na lugar. Ito kasi ang catch basin sa Erosin.
Evacuees are safe and no one is sick. Government volcanologists have recorded 7 volcanic earthquakes within 24 hours and people still fear for their lives as there's no telling when Bulusan will erupt next. But they are also eager to return to their normal lives soon. And that's the latest here in Sorsogon. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you, Stanley Gahete, reporting live from Sorsogon. Experts have found groundwater in 8 towns and 1 city in Batangas contain high arsenic levels. George Cahiles explains how harmful this could be for people in the province south of Metro Manila.
Christine Blanco, a resident of Barangay Sinisian East, Lemery, Batangas, drinks a glass of water straight from the tap. The water may be crystal clear, but little does she know, there are harmful chemicals invisible to the naked eye.
Nasanay na hong yun ang iniinom at saka malinis naman.
The local government says water sources in 9 towns of Batangas have high arsenic level, that can really be harmful to people's health, including the groundwater in Barangay Sinisian East. The World Health Organization recommends arsenic content in water should not exceed by 10 micrograms per liter limit.
Arsenic is a carcinogenic chemical by IARC, no? yung standards na yon. And so in time you might develop cancer. There are some water sources that are safe and there are some that should not be drunk. So hindi siya pwedeng inumin, hindi rin siya pwedeng pangluto.
Ang aking asawa nagkasakit, pero ngayon naman awa ng Diyos na-recover. Hindi ko lang po alam kung saan nagmula yun.
Experts say excessive intake of arsenic may cause vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. Long-term exposure to high levels of arsenic may cause bigger problems.
Even with less than 6 months exposure to drinking arsenic in water, you might develop skin symptoms. You will develop a lot of diseases like cancer of the lungs, cancer of the bladder, and then exacerbation of your diabetes. Ibig sabihin, nag-worsen yung diabetes, hypertension.
Experts say boiling cannot remove arsenic in water. Thus, they ask people in affected areas to use either purified or distilled water for drinking and cooking.
Ang mga tao ay nabili na ng mineral water para sa kanilang pagluluto, ginagamit. Ang problema lamang ay doon sa mga tao na talagang walang kakayanan para bumili talaga ng mineral water dahil hindi pare-pareho ang mga tao. Lalo pa ngayon na nag-pandemic, walang trabaho ang iba.
The Batangas Medical Center Toxicology Unit have already tested 104 residents in affected areas. 11 were found to have traces of arsenic in their urine samples. George Cahiles, CNN Philippines.
George Cahiles will tell us how local officials are helping residents in the second part of this report. More news ahead. The country records new cases of the more transmissible Omicron subvariants. And President Duterte has this parting message to Filipinos more than 3 weeks before he steps down from Malacanang. Details next on Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Exodo, Kabanata 18, versikulo 21. Ngunit pumili ka ng mga taong may kakayahan, may takot sa Diyos, mapagkakatiwalaan, at di masusuhulan. Gawin mo silang tagapangasiwa sa libo-libo, daan-daan, 5-50, at 10-10.
Ang mabuting balita ay hatid sa inyo ng MX3.
Land Bank has always believed that in this country, we have to dream big. And so we learned to build something out of nothing, improving the quality of life for our people so that we can keep in step with a brave new world and make our big dreams come true.
Welcome back to Newsnight. More cases of 2 highly transmissible Omicron subvariants. Health experts flag a slight uptick in COVID-19 infections in Metro Manila. Carolyn Bonkin reports officials are working to keep cases low while the president speaks up on suggestions to make masks optional outdoors.
Vergel Valdez was among the thousands laid off when the pandemic hit in 2020. Today, his new job as store assistant is stable, with more and more clients coming back. Vergel thinks vaccination and mask wearing help contain COVID-19 cases, which means he gets to keep his job.
Mas muna. Siyempre, mas maganda yung patagalin muna natin yung pagpamas kahit mga 1 taon, ganun. Para at least safety. Face mask talaga. Huwag lang face shield.
Despite suggestions making mask optional outdoors, the president wants to keep it mandatory at least until his term ends. He says compliance with masking and getting vaccinated helped the economy running.
And to think na yung iba sa ngayon nagkaroon ng surge, maybe the citizens of that country do not want to follow regulations. Tayo dito, sabi ko, takot. Kasi mahirap lang nga tayo. At nagbigyan pa ninyo wala ng trabaho, masakit lahat ng tao. The economy can never recover.
The IATF allows the public to remove masks when dining, when doing outdoor exercises, or participating at sports events in well-ventilated venues. DOH officials say the pandemic isn't over yet, and masks will help keep infections at bay, especially with new variants surfacing. In checking 190 samples, the Philippine Genome Center and RITM discovered more Omicron subvariant cases. 3 BA.5 and 7 BA.2.12.1. 2 persons with BA.5 are from Calabarzon. All BA.5 cases had COVID in May and have recovered.
We can say na wala tayong mga international sources for BA.5. So pag ganito ang tinitingnan natin, mataas ang probability na meron tayong local transmission. We still need further evidence for us to be able to confirm.
Mukhang nag-fizzle out naman. We have a lot of hope that yung current vaccination program natin and yung patuloy na natin na paggamit ng ating masks will be successful.
New BA.2.12.1 cases are from NCR, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, Calabarzon, and Bicol. Though still at low risk for COVID-19, DOH and Octa Research see a slight uptick in infections in Metro Manila beginning mid-May.
We can't disregard it kasi yung mga previous surges nagsisimula sila sa mga ganyang upticks. We're hoping na hindi ganun.
Meron tayong mga pagtaas and yes, hindi ito significant. Ang pinaka-importante sa atin ngayon dito sa ating bansa at this stage of the response for the pandemic would be the severe and critical cases.
At least for now, most COVID-19 cases don't require hospitalization. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
In other news, the owner of the SUV involved in the hit and run of a security guard in Mandaluyong City did not show up before transport investigators today. Chrissy Matulak tells us what authorities will do about this.
A second and final show cause order now requires the SUV owner to comment or explain on Friday, 1 p.m. According to the LTO, the show cause order was accepted by the registered owner of the vehicle. The agency did not disclose, however, whether the registered owner was also the same person behind the wheel during the incident. This is one of the aspects being investigated.
We already given him an opportunity to be heard. So therefore, sir, the case will be resolved based on the evidence at hand. Whether or not mag-appear siya or wala siyang explanation na pinadala sa atin. Based on the available records po, i-resolve po natin.
The driver's license of the SUV owner will also be revoked in case he does not appear for the second time. Earlier, the owner's driver's license was placed under preventive suspension for 90 days. A colleague of Ronaldo describes the current condition of the security guard.
As of now, nasa ICU pa rin siya. Meron lang series of tests na possible na gawin. Nakakapagsalita siya, yes.
Ano sabi niya, sir, sa pakikipagkwentuhan?
Medyo garargar kung tawagin nila sa salitang kanto, no. Alam mo 'yun, medyo hinahatak niya yung hininga.
The Mandaluyong police have already filed charges of frustrated murder and abandonment of one's own victim before a court on Monday. Chrissy Matulak, CNN Philippines.
President-elect Bongbong Marcos meets with more ambassadors today. The ambassadors of Germany, Spain, and Morocco paid a courtesy call on him at his campaign headquarters in Mandaluyong. In a quick media briefing, the German envoy said she and Marcos talked about human rights, but they did not discuss President Duterte's request to European nations to cut funding for progressive groups here at home.
We discussed our commitment, or we exchanged about our commitment about Germany's continued commitment in the area of protecting human rights and safeguarding rule of law. We didn't go into details of projects and project funding. As one example of Germany's commitment, I mentioned Germany's funding of the UN Joint Program on Human Rights.
Other topics discussed during their meeting include renewable energy, climate change, and food security, among others. Outgoing President Rodrigo Duterte calls on Filipinos to support the incoming Marcos administration. In what he described as his parting message, Duterte said Filipinos must respect the majority's decision in that there should be no room for politicking or divisive actions.
Me, wala na ako. I will say nothing. Ang ayaw ko, baka may maiwan pa yung namumuliti ka pa rin. Or, just plain criticize itong bagong administrasyon. You do not do that. President-elect Marcos would need the cooperation and help of everybody. We must give it to him.
In the same media briefing, Duterte said he will retire from politics once his term ends on June 30. He called on security forces to continue his administration's controversial war on drugs. A conglomerate's mission to remove thousands of tons of waste from two of the country's most polluted rivers continues to gain support. Joining the effort is a Japanese firm that wants to fast-track the cleanup for the benefit of communities. Rex Remitio has the details.
Much has been achieved, yet much still needs to be done. San Miguel Corporation vows to ramp up efforts in cleaning up Pasig and Tulyahan rivers. A shipping giant NYK Line donates powerful high-capacity excavators. The equipment is part of the Japanese company's $1.5 million or nearly 80 million peso donation to the conglomerate's initiative.
Okay, Japanese equipment, of my experience, can last for 10 times more than whatever equipment you can buy. So, it's but natural to buy the most reliable equipment.
Surprised to see this is the actual operation, and also I respect Misa and the philosophy to clean up, Philippine River.
As San Miguel hires more personnel to help in the cleanup efforts, SMC President and CEO Ramon Ang says he expects to double the amount of excavated garbage and silt. He says they're about to complete dredging and widening efforts in Tulyahan River by next week. So far, San Miguel has excavated garbage and silt equivalent to the capacity of 70,000 dump trucks. Some sections of the Pasig River are now up to 6 meters deep from the previous 3 meters. Dredging activities have gathered trash that can fill up over 30,000 dump trucks.
Let's say instead of 3 years, now with this, we can do 10,000 tons a day. It's maybe less than 2 years, we can finish the whole cleanup.
Ang says water flow in Pasig River will be faster in the future, together with improving flood control in Metro Manila. In the race to clean up river systems, the government is banking on private initiative to make the difference.
We need the private sector and the other government agencies and donors to fast-track all these activities because we are pressed for time.
That is why we in San Miguel committed to rehabilitate the rivers.
Rex Remitio, CNN Philippines.
Stories in sports and entertainment up ahead. SJ Balangel is taking his talents to the Korean Basketball League. But the two-time UAAP men's basketball champ tells us it was not an easy decision. Plus, another hit Korean series is getting a season 2 on Netflix. Details when we return on Newsnight.
Fried chicken? Timplang happy. Tosino? Timplang magandang gising. Inasal? Ito, medyo timplang umuusok. Galit-galitan. Spicy? Timplang hot na hot. With easy-to-cook Magnolia Chicken Timplados. Iba't ibang sarap ng chicken, kaya. Ikaw, anong Magnolia Chicken Timplados mo? Iba't ibang easy chicken sarap.
Beyond bringing power to all, we're taking steps to produce and deliver Earth-friendly energy today and for our children's tomorrow. Powering the good life. Meralco.
You're watching CNN Philippines. iPhone users can look forward to a bunch of new functions with the latest update to Apple's mobile operating system. With iOS 16, you will soon be able to edit or unsend iMessages and personalize your lock screen with live updates, like those from ongoing sports games. No word yet on when Apple will drop iOS 16, but word is out. It's likely later this year. In sports, Ateneo standout SJ Belangel is set to make some big moves, heading to the pros and becoming the first Filipino import in the Korean Basketball League. Belangel confirmed to CNN Philippines' sports desk that he's gearing up to join Daegu Koga's Pegasus in the 2022 and 2023 KBL season. With this, the 23-year-old will forgo his last 2 years playing for the Blue Eagles.
It's a tough scenario for me and for my family. And actually, to be honest, sina ni Coach Tab wanted me to stay pa talaga.
Of course.
But for me, it's a great opportunity for me to grow as a player and to know more about Korean Basketball League, Korean's culture, and it will help my family as well. Hindi ko talaga ipagpapalit sa anumang na memories namin with the coaches, with my teammates, and everyone in the Ateneo community.
Belangel is also part of the Gilas Pilipinas pool for the third window of the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers happening later this month. Entertainment news now. There's more to the story of the surviving students from Yosan High School, with Netflix's All of Us Are Dead confirmed for a second season. The Korean zombie series dominated the streaming platform upon its release in January. Season 1 reached the top 10 non-English language shows list in 91 countries. And that's it for now. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Maya Rodriguez, sitting in for Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
Kini ang simbianan sa RPN, Radio Philippines Network, DXKS. DXKS 1080 ang inyong Radio Ronda. 5,000 watts nagsimbiya sa ikatulong andana sa UFCO Lim Building, Borromeo Street, Dakbayan sa Surigao. RPN Radio Philippines Network, DXKS 1080 ang inyong Radio Ronda.
Thank you for watching New Day here on CNN Philippines. A party list group vying for a seat in the next Congress is pushing for advancement in rural areas, especially in the agriculture sector. Joining us for this up-close segment this morning is Alfred de los Santos. He is the first nominee of the Alianza ng Mamamayang Probinsyano, or ang Probinsyano party list. Good morning, Congressman de los Santos. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, it's just 5 days to go before the Filipino votes. How's the campaign going for your party list group?
Hi, good morning, Ria. We have always continued what we've been doing for the past 3 years, which is go to the people, know the problem, find a solution, and bring the solution back to the people. So, with the leadership of our chairman, Raymond De Los Santos, we have always been doing this, and I thank God it was reflected in the surveys, and I hope in the coming elections it will also be in a good turnout.
Now, your group is seeking a representation of farmers, fishermen, and other marginalized groups in the provinces and rural areas in the Philippines. What do you think are the main challenges or problems in rural areas now?
Well, of course, it's the primary problem is the infrastructures in the rural areas. Sa paglilibot namin, Ma'am Ria, we saw the challenges in going there. The roads are really inefficient. There are challenges going to the places like government services like health and education. So it will be our primary target to prioritize this, to build infrastructures and to have some multipurpose and school buildings, hospitals, roads, and especially tubig, water for all. Yan yung mga projects na pinaprioritize natin dahil ito yung nakikita nating problema.
So, Congressman, what are your concrete plans to address these issues, and what would your priority legislation or projects be if elected?
Well, our concrete plan is actually we have already planned and communicated with the LGUs. We have some specific infrastructure projects already that are in mind. And in our legislative plans, sa agriculture, ma'am, meron tayong Magna Carta for workers in the agricultural sector, technologically centers, which will modernize our agri-sectors. Also, kailangan din natin ng support for the farmers, which is the internet for them. So, usually, ito talaga, no? And syempre, ang pinaka-importante dyan is the Rural Literacy Act, which is bibigyan natin ng more trainings ang aking agriculture para ma-modernize ang kanila talagang trabaho.
Now, speaking of modernization, Congressman, you're calling for the youth to go back to agriculture and fisheries by, as you said, incorporating modern technologies in these sectors. What kind of reception are you getting from young people when you encourage them to go back to agriculture and fisheries?
Well, we have mixed reactions, Ma'am Ria, no? Some of the people really are telling me na parang they really don't want it because they have a misconception of farming and fisher folks are, they have a bad rep eh. But this is one of our advocacies na mabigyan ng magandang imahe ang ating mga nasa agrikultura na this is not really a bad job, this is not a bad hanap buhay. So dapat we have to educate our youth na they can see that it is really productive, it's really maganda ang kita dito. So ito talaga dapat yung bago nating perception sa ating mga kabataan na it's really important yung agricultural sector.
Right, needs modernization, but so much potential. Thank you very much, Congressman Alfred De Los Santos from Ang Probinsyano Party List.
SMC, San Miguel Corporation. Bisag unsang industriya ang sudlan niini, tinguha sa SMC ang pag-uswag o paglambo sa mga Pilipino. Karon, gikan sa SMC, aniya na ang SMC Davao Cement. SMC Davao Cement. Gama sa Davao para sa Mindanao. SMC Davao Cement. Ato ni Bay.
Protektahi ang imong mga mata batok sa delikado ug makadaot nga ultraviolet nga silaw sa adlaw ug uban pa. Pinaagi sa pagsulob og eksakto nga prescription sa antiyohos o antipara. Likay ang mga simptomas sama sa hanap nga pananaw sa layo o duol nga basahon, sakit sa ulo ug uban pa nga makaapekto sa atong kahimsog nga ang hinungdan depekto sa atong mga mata. Alang sa kumpleto nga primary eye care, contact lenses, fashion eyewear, computer eyeglasses, sunglasses, accessories ug uban pa, adto kita sa AG Buñuel Optical Clinic. Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic nagpahinumdum kanato nga ang kahimsog sa atong mga mata usa ka prioridad nga angay ipa-check up kausa matag tuig aron pagsiguro nga luwas kita sa piligrong mga sakit. Pinaagi sa lisensyado o qualified optometrists nga maoy mo prescribe sa eksaktong kagamitan o kung primary eye care ang paghisgutan. Duaw lang silang buhatan sa 3636 sa Nicolas Street, Surigao City ug adunay ilang extension office sa Aurelianida Street, Cantilan, Surigao del Sur. Ayaw kalimti higala, AG Buniel Optical Clinic.
Ang AG Buniel Optical Clinic dunay branch dito sa lungsod sa Dapa sa may Lupis Haina Street, Poblasyon Dapa, Surigao del Norte.
Ang AG Buniel Optical Clinic dinhi sa syudad ng Surigao no transfer na sa bag-ong location sa Nicolas Street Ragyahapon, tapad sa Garcia Hotel at bang sa Unicity.
For everything that's true, count on GSM Blue. The true things come your way, yeah. In your life you have a say. So choose what you want. Laban ng barkada, GSM Blue ang kasama. We choose GSM Blue. Choose what's true.
Okay lang to make mistakes. Kung sa sarili, totoo at hindi fake.
Dahil ito ang GSM Blue.
Drink responsibly. Choose to chill and enjoy the true flavors of Mojito, Margarita, Gin Pomelo, and Cosmopolitan with GSM Blue. Drink responsibly.
Ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated na sa ilang bagong location sa Dalan, Burgos, ning atong syudad. Mahimo niyong tawagan sa telephone number 231-7478 or 826-3663. Mga produkto nga inyong mapalit, genuine, Makita Power Tools sama sa planer, drill, grinder, Triton Paints, construction supplies, angle bars, flat bars, GI pipes, automotive spare parts, Firefly electrical devices sama sa switches, bulbs ug outlets. Adto ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated sa ilang bagong pwesto sa Dalan, Burgos ning syudad. Makahangyo ka o makabarato pagyod diha sa Riverside Parts Master Incorporated.
Sipon plus baradong ilong na may kasamang pananakit ng ulo? Pre, ba't ka nagtitiis? Kung meron namang Calabo Premium Rub, Calabo Premium Rub, isang pahid lang, nanunuot ang sarap sa pakiramdam sa ulo, ilong at sarap sa may ginhawa. Tandaan, basta sipon na may kasamang sakit ng ulo at baradong ilong, magpahid lang ng Calabo Premium Rub. Mabisa, kaya sigurado. Gawa ng Jesser Marketing. Mabibili na ngayon sa mga butika. Ang kapinghot sa ilong nga imong giantos, hasol kaayo kini, hilabi na kung apilan mong pagsipon nga lisod tang tangon. Sulay higala ang gahom sa Calabo Premium Rub. Ipahid palibot sa imong ilong. Aron ang gahom sa Calabo Extract inumanan sa malunggay and virgin coconut oil manuhot-suhot kini. Calabo Premium Rub, ang sulbad sa pingot nga ilong. Calabo Premium Rub is a quality product of Jesser Marketing.
RPN Radio Philippines Network Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
We continue our conversations with party list groups seeking a seat in the next Congress. Barangay Health and Wellness, or BHW party list, is advocating for the health and wellness of Filipinos at the grassroots level. To tell us more about this, joining us now is Congresswoman Angelica Natasha Co, first nominee of the BHW party list. Good morning. Thank you for joining us, Congresswoman. Now, we've just got 5 days to go before Election Day. What are your plans for the final stretch of the campaign period?
Thank you, Ria. Good morning to everyone. Well, the last 5 days would probably be the most important ones. We are strengthening our barangay health workers, and they've given us their trust, and we value their trust. And so we push through and we hustle the last few days of this campaign.
Now, your party, the BHW party list, takes pride in filing a number of bills to help frontliners and providing programs like medical assistance and medical missions. For you, what do you think are the problems or challenges in the barangay health sector that you hope to address if elected again to the next Congress?
Definitely with the Magna Carta for the barangay health workers, which we pushed this 18th Congress, we want to give them, of course, the benefits and then incentives as well, because these are volunteer workers. And so they do not have the equipments. They do not have the instruments that they can work with. Just for example, with BP apparatus, most of them do not have that. And so we are slowly but surely giving these health workers instruments that they can work with when they do their services to the barangays.
Now, obviously, you've been a champion of barangay health workers who have been really crucial, especially in this pandemic. What other programs or benefits can you offer to them moving forward?
One is the hazard allowance, or what we call the special risk allowances. During the pandemic, we were able to give them this benefit, the special risk allowance, because when they go out to the barangays, they're not equipped with PPEs, the government was not able to give them and provide for them these protective gears. And so to give them a better protection also, we give them the special risk allowances so that they can get something from the government as well as their protection.
So you are on the ground, you are in touch and face-to-face with these volunteer barangay health workers. When you speak to them, what else are they asking for? What else are their needs? What kind of support do they require?
One, they're asking for training. Because of the pandemic, there's been a long hiatus for trainings for them. And so this is the number one priority that they're asking for. Of course, the benefits come in second because they do not have anything. Some of them are underprivileged and are only getting 50 pesos per month. And so what we want to give them, not just ayuda, no, hindi lang ayuda ang ibibigay natin, but also the support with the protective gears, with the instruments, with the training, and so that we can equip them and so that they could be skillful in their jobs.
All right, thank you so much for your time this morning. That was Congresswoman Angelica Natasha Co from the BHW party list.
Thank you, Ria. Good morning.
Now, your vote is sacred, and there are many people tasked to make sure that every vote is counted. Let's
RPN Radio Philippines Network.